Hi, I'm Tom at Just One Pack, and this is AC on the Short Alpha Clash podcast, where I talk all things Alpha Clash on my way to work. Now, today I want to talk about distribution because I'm not as happy as I should be. At least I think I should be. So let's talk about that. Now, before diving into what I want to say and trying to keep on point, because this very easily could be around. I just want to make a few things very, very, very clear. I am not a game store. I don't own a game store. I'm not associated with a game store. In fact, that might come up as a point. I rarely get into a game store because while there is a game store in my city where I live, it is not a place to play games. I do have, though, an affiliation code with the game store I usually use for Alpha Clash products. That being said, it is not something that benefits me. It's something that benefits those who buy from the store using this code. So I don't get any kickback from that. I just want to make that clear, because that does mean that there are loads of details I do not know, where I can be completely misguided on this. And if that is the case, if there's something I need to know to understand it better, please let me know in the comments below. Anyway, so one of the key things about building communities around or at least it seems to me that is a key point for building communities, is the availability of product. Now, in big games such as Magic or Pokemon, the availability is not really an issue. They are big, they can pretty much dictate the way things are going to work. For smaller TCGs, like Alpha Clash, the community it needs to be established, and that needs to be established through ambassadors, through people with a passion for the game, right? Well, that would be true for anything you want to start, right? But TCGs, but small TCGs, no exception to this. They need passionate people to build the communities. Now, they can come from anywhere, right? And they can gather anywhere, but that is needed to build communities. But what is needed for a community to grow is access to products, access to game pieces that new players can get their hands on. And to my understanding and to my experience from trying to build a community, that access needs to have as low a barrier of entry as possible. The easier it is to get hold of products at an affordable price, the better it is for building a community. Now, the pricing of Alpha Clash, for what I've seen, even in ordinary retail, is not the issue. It is reasonably priced. There isn't any of these completely bonkers products. So it's not a price thing. It's not even a product type thing, though I may make a podcast about the starter decks or beginner guide decks or something like that at a later point, because I have a few ideas. But it's not the products. The products are there. They are the right products, in my opinion, and I love the idea of the Champions deck, even if they are a bit expensive. But that is a doable product, or at least I think they would be, because more on that. The issue is I think stemming from the going indie, or going fully indie project. So to just a quick cap of what that is, if you don't know. Rising Empire Studio, the team or the company behind Alpha Clash, announced a while back that they would be going fully indie because they have had some issues with going through distribution. That meant, at least what they told us at that time, would mean that they would start enrolling shops in what they called the Champion Store program. And that initiative was to get closer to the stores so that they could actually have a conversation about them, about the game with the stores that cared about the game, and they could get price support and marketing materials and stuff like that into stores instead of going through distribution that had no incentive to pass these things on. And it was basic stuff like the rivalry kits, which is a great product for game stores that want to build a community, right? Perfect. No no's there. It makes perfect sense. What I didn't realize, or well, maybe it's not true. That is a caveat. So what it seems to mean now is that from Echoes of Eternity, apparently, distribution through the normal means, meaning through distribution hubs like Blackfire in the EU, has ceased. And what that means is that if you're not close to a championship store, or at least for a European-based audience, if you're not close to a championship store, you cannot get Echoes of Eternity. And I'm not saying this lightly, because the access to product is so important to building communities. So not having that access is really problematic. Now, it may be that Europe is simply not growing or isn't interesting enough, so there could be a whole marketing, a whole strategy around that. But it's not the vibe I'm getting. It's not it doesn't seem to be the thing. What does seem to be is that there is this idea of champions or of stores being the hub of communities, and that may be right. I may be a special case here, but here's the thing. I've been talking to the local game stores a while back. I'm keep on trying to make them interested in carrying the game, because one of the things to get to be a championship store, or at least it was a while back, was that you had to carry the product and you had to have some sort of organized play or some support for a play group in your store. Now, the stores, it sort of creates a chicken and egg problem here. And the chicken and egg problem is that if you don't buy a lot of stuff, meaning there isn't a lot of interest in there isn't a lot of interest in the game, then you don't sell much of the product, and if you don't sell much of the product, you're not likely to start putting in extra resources to build a community around it. That is a huge disadvantage if having a community is a prerequisite for getting the product. What ends up happening is that the store already has the the passionate people in the game, passionate Alpha Clash players in the store trying to push and build that community. They might bring in the product, or they will probably, if you have the passion and they are sufficiently good at selling the idea to the game store, right? That is the optimal solution. Someone is passionate about the game and they bring it to the game store saying, I want to play this game. However, in order for that to happen, someone has to see that product, right? They have to know that the game exists and they have to be interested in playing it enough to be passionate about it. The other way around, if you don't have that, or if you are passionate, like in my case, you are passionate about the game, but you do not have a local game store. And I know I'm not alone, or at least I used to not be. Maybe I am now. I don't know. If you don't have a local game store that wants to carry it, or don't have the local game store to go play it in, you are now in that situation where, as it seems, Alpha Clash has left general distribution, such as Blackfire, and that means that it's not available outside of Champion stores. I am tracking that. I'm sorry, and that the fact that it's not available outside Championship stores means that it is unavailable. I'll put a few words on that in just a bit. It is unavailable if you don't live near that one of those Championship stores in Europe. It may be the same case for other places. I haven't looked. What that means in practical terms is that the community will die because no product, no community, right? Now, I'll get my product and I'll probably hang around for a bit. It's not like I'm quitting everything. We're nowhere near that. It just means that the community I'm trying to build is going to be a lot harder to build if there is no product available. But what do I mean with there's no product available? Right? They just released the next set. We're in the middle of release week for this. Well, what I mean is when it released, when it disappeared from general distribution, which happened with Echoes of Eternity. It disappeared from the stores that is not Championship stores. In fact, I would argue that it's only partially in Championship stores. At least this is from a purely European perspective, and I hope to get other things if you see the same thing. But from a European perspective, there are two Championship stores. One is the Leaky Teacup in Redford, soon to have Awakening number 2. They do not have an online presence. So I, not living near there, has to know the secret access to get my hands on product. I may know it, but starting players may be curious about starting to buy into this hobby, buying into this product, does not, and do not want to go on eBay and try to fish for product, or which most of it is, by the way, from the US, and do not want to risk what it may and may not cost to get it from the US or from the Philippines or wherever you can get, Australia, if you can find a shop with it, and do not want to know the secret and join a Discord and join that deep into a community in order to get product. Now, that is the way, if you want it for Leaky Teacup, you need to be in the Clashing Teacups Discord to pre-order an order, or you need to show up the store, right? The other Championship store in Europe is in Oslo. They have an online presence, but there are currently only Unrivaled and Year of the Dragon boxes at Midgård Gaming. of Midgård games, which and no echoes, no Genesis, no Equilibrium, no Spoils of the Forgotten or Siege of the Forgotten. So they may be registered as championship store, but I don't know what's actually happening there. I've written them, but they haven't responded. So that leaves all the ordinary online stores, that some of which are actually physical stores as well. The thing about that, though, is that they are leaning on distribution and do not, for one reason or another, want to become championship stores. So don't know that that's an option. I don't know how Rising Empire Studios has been selling this idea to stores other than who they meet at their US conferences. I don't know, but they aren't, and I am tracking because I want to know what the World of Alpha Clash looks like across Europe, not just the community locally I'm trying to build, but across Europe. So I'm trying to reach out whenever I can. I'm currently tracking 13 shops online that have or have had Alpha Clash products in Europe. They are, of course, in Norway, because Midgård, in Denmark, in Germany, in Spain, in Czech Republic, in France, I think I find one in Italy as well, that used to have it, Latvia as well. I don't think I've missed them, but Germany, if I have mentioned, there are a few shops there. And what I've seen there is about half the stores that at some point had Alpha Clash have had it up to and including Siege of the Forgotten on their online presence, on their web stores, which means there is plenty of room to get hold of these products. Now, preferably, we want something in the individual country. That would be the ideal, because it's easier to convince yourself that buying something from a shop in your own country, especially if you're new into the world of TCG, which sort of is a weird world we need to ease people a little bit into. But having a semi-local access is really important. Also, because it does mean something with taxes, tariffs, distribution costs, stuff like that. So it's not just a feeling; it's also an economic thing. You can sort of predict what things will cost. Now, half of these stores had Genesis, half of them had Equilibrium, half of them have Spoils and Siege of the Forgotten. One of the 13 shops I've been following, one has Echoes of Eternity, and I'm not sure that they are new on my radar. So, and the prices doesn't seem to be quite right. So there might be a thing there about if they're guessing at prices, but only one store has that product. I don't know where they get it from. It is not for distribution, apparently. So that is a huge disadvantage. Now, I've been talking to my own game store because I want them to carry it, and they've been very, very helpful about getting the products. But they also do not want to add complexity to their, more complexity to their supplier lines. So they don't want to add too much more complexity to that, and don't want to have just another distributor for a very small product. They are not selling much of Alpha Clash. I am just helping to keep it in the store, so to speak, right? By having the conversation, by building community. Now, I'm not giving up. on getting them to be a champion store, and I'm soon to start conversations with another game store that might want to build a community and might want to become a champion store. But until that happens, if there isn't an alternative to being a champion store and get the product, or if you need to go directly through Rising Empire Studio with all the fluff that comes around with buying directly, things like now you have to deal with the taxes and the import restrictions, and now you have to deal with all the rest of that, and a new distributor, a new supplier, then the competition around TCGs simply means that TCGs, small TCGs like Alpha Clash, will just be dropped. It is not worth the pain and effort to go through. So it is from my point of view really problematic that the access to product is tied up to the willingness to build a local community. That's really problematic for the general distribution, for a small TCG that wants to grow, but in my opinion needs to grow through the small local communities that may or may not be tied to a game store. Now, all of this is, of course, from my point of view. I'm just sad to see that the work I put into creating a community where we are meeting fairly regularly, and the opportunities I have for starting something, maybe in another city here in the fall, and maybe moving on to creating something in a game store in a third city, is crumbling because of access to the product is not there. That is horrible to me. It makes me sad, or that really negates a lot of the effort. So I really, really hope that Rising Empire Studio is seizing on this. I will write them, of course. This may be like an open letter, but we need to. They're listening to us, or usually at least. I'm supposed they still listen. And then, so if I'm the only one with the problem, never mind. I'll write them. I'll complain and all that. But if I'm the only one with an issue here, so be it. In the bigger context, I'm no one, right? I'm just one community member trying to build something. There might be loads of those, but if I'm not the only one with this problem, if this is actually what's happening, then we need to write it. We need to do something to get the distribution model adapted. It may be that in Europe alone, if that's the only way, the only place where we have this issue of accessibility, then maybe Europe is the one where we go through distribution, and then if enough interest builds in the game itself, then we can start look at the comic books, and we can start look at the promo cards and all of the rest of it. Most players, for at least people who are new to TCGs, well, I love to put comic books in their hands. I bought extra for that exact reason, because I want to bring a comic book to an introduction so that people can see it. But it's not the important bit. The important bit is access to pre-constructed decks, and to new product, because the joy of TCGs is ripping packs, at least for many, is ripping packs and trying to explore what they can do with those cards. Right? There are always three parts of a TCG. There's the deck building, there's the gameplay itself, and there's the exploration of this collection part of it, right? And sure, if you get engraved or entrenched enough or or passionate enough about the TCG, then you might want to look at the comics. Or if you only had access to the comics, maybe that would be the way. Anyways, we need to do something. If I'm the only one with a problem, never mind. I'll try and convince Rising Empire Studio to do something. But if I'm the only one, then it's a fairly little problem for Rising Empire Studios. However, if this is a more common problem, then we need to fix it. Anyway, that was it for me now. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you do, please share. It's not going to stop anytime soon. That's not the point of this. We're going to fight for this because it's a really good game. But if you like it, please subscribe, push like, share it with mates, whoever might be interested in hearing about TCGs and Alpha Clashes in particular. Anyway, that was it for me. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.